Yin Shu's gaze narrowed, his sleeve sweeping through the air, releasing a shard of black light that rapidly expanded into a dark mirror. This mirror spun relentlessly, casting eerie black light in all directions. Projections materialized, figures walking or flying about, all from those who had passed through this space before. Some shadows were clear, others faint, but the ones of Han Li and his group shone with particular clarity, flying towards a distant path. "Follow them!" Yin Shu commanded, his figure and Gui Mu's vanishing towards the path. Within the Black Palace's vast expanse, Han Li and his group rushed forward, weaving between towering palaces, pavilions, and structures that mirrored an imperial city's grandeur. They stayed close to the ground, avoiding unnecessary heights. Visibility was limited to a mere 1,000 feet for Fox 3 and the others, while even Han Li's infernal devilish eyes could barely pierce 3,000 feet. The spatial pressure in the air did not harm them, but it slowed their pace. "Where are we?" Fox 3 asked, unease in his tone. "Have you discovered anything, Weeping Soul?" "I've never been here before either," Weeping Soul replied, shaking her head. "The rules forbidding battle work in our favor, but perhaps we should make a stand here," Fox 3 suggested. "No, we cannot rely on that," Shi Chuankong countered swiftly. "Even with such a rule, if a battle is unavoidable, we must choose a place with an advantage." Just then, Han Li's face shifted as he spoke. "The layout here, it's intricate, almost like an array. Perhaps this explains the spatial pressure." The buildings, seemingly unremarkable, were actually part of a hidden design, runes etched into them connecting them in an unseen web. "You're right," Bai Liyan agreed. "Such a place should be guarded, yet there's not a soul here." Weeping Soul's face turned pale. "They're catching up to us!" The group hastened, but their pursuers were drawing near. The spatial pressure was a weight they could not escape. "There's a passage ahead," Han Li said, pointing toward a strange aura. "Shall we enter?" "At this point, we have no choice," Shi Chuankong answered grimly. "No more trouble than those chasing us," Fox 3 said with a chuckle. "Exactly," Bai Liyan added. "We have nothing to lose." Weeping Soul nodded, eager to follow Han Li. The group diverted, reaching a massive artificial mountain with a glowing white cave at its base. They entered without hesitation, only just ahead of their pursuers. "How did they know?" Gui Mu grumbled. "Could they have uncovered the secret here?" Yin Shu was resolute, coldly dismissing the concern. "No time for speculation. We follow." Meanwhile, Han Li and his group moved swiftly through the tunnel, which grew brighter the deeper they went. Despite the clarity, they knew it only meant their pursuers would soon catch up. Suddenly they halted. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a massive hall. At its end stood a stone gate, surrounded by intricate glowing runes and restrictions, with a particularly bright silver light rippling in a barrier. Fox 3 grimaced, summoning a foot-long conical immortal treasure. Arcs of white lightning coursed through it as he hurled it at the gate. The thunderclap rang out as the treasure collided, but it was utterly repelled by the powerful restrictions. "That treasure didn't even leave a mark," Han Li remarked, furrowing his brow. Fox 3 sighed. "Seems we've truly reached an impasse." "We're not to blame, Han Li," Fox 3 added with a smile. "We all chose to come. Let's make our stand here." Bai Liyan nodded. This battle was always inevitable. Weeping Soul remained silent, steadfast beside Han Li. Shi Chuankong moved toward the stone gate, summoning a golden mirror, which projected a silver beam onto the restrictions. The barrier rippled and the silver light quivered. "Can you unravel them?" Bai Liyan asked eagerly. "The restrictions are formidable," Shi Chuankong said, his tone uncertain. "I'll need time." "Take as long as you need. We'll buy you time," Fox 3 said, his eyes narrowing as he looked toward the tunnel entrance. Han Li glanced at Shi Chuankong before turning his focus back to the tunnel. "They're coming." A moment later, Gui Mu and Yin Shu emerged, their sneers cold. "You ran off quickly, didn't you?" Yin Shu taunted. Before he could finish, Fox 3's immortal treasure shot forward with a thunderous boom. "If you want to fight, then stop talking," Fox 3 barked, ready for battle. A brilliant white immortal treasure streaked through the air like a bolt of golden lightning, its radiant form splitting the air in an instant. Suddenly 100 identical treasures emerged, each crackling with arcs of white lightning. Together, they descended upon Gui Mu and Yin Shu, engulfing the space in a relentless barrage of power. Don't think you're so clever, you little pest! Guimu sneered, his fingers splayed as he reached for the heavens. A ball of radiant black light manifested in his palm, from which countless black vines erupted, writhing like serpents. They twisted and expanded into a dense net, trapping the conical treasures mid-flight. The treasures were ensnared, thrashing wildly within the net, as though fish caught in a trap. Fox 3 swiftly formed a hand seal, sending arcs of radiant white lightning surging toward the black vine net. However, the net trembled only slightly before the lightning fizzled out harmlessly. The vines stretched, ensnaring the spikes of lightning, and a suffocating black vapor oozed from the vines, carrying a stench akin to rotting swamp water. The lightning trembled as it began to lose its strength, corroded by the vile black mist. Fox 3's face twisted in frustration as he hastily sealed his hands again. The lightning spikes fought desperately against the suffocating forces, their auras flickering erratically as black and white energies collided with furious claps of thunder. "Guimu, what are you doing?" Yinshu roared, but Guimu only flinched, hastily retracting the dark light emanating from his vines. With that brief respite, Fox 3 seized the moment, redoubling his efforts. His lightning burst forth, breaking free from the tangled net and surging forward. The tide was turning in their favor. At that precise moment, azure light erupted from Han Li's body, and 9 gleaming azure bamboo cloud swarm swords appeared before Yinshu, shooting toward him as one. Yinshu's brow twitched, and a sphere of shadow expanded rapidly, enveloping him in a dark barrier. The swords struck with explosive force, embedding themselves halfway into the barrier before halting abruptly. Yinshu snorted, runes of black energy appearing over the shield. The barrier quivered as vortex-like ripples spread, and a tremendous suction force began to pull the swords inward. Han Li remained calm, releasing a pulse of azure light from his mouth. The energy split, sinking into the swords, each one now imbued with the power of time laws. The swords trembled, arcs of golden lightning crackling around them, time-infused energy clashing with the dark barrier. The shield buckled under the onslaught, and with a final surge of power, the barrier shattered, the swords returning to Han Li's side in a flash. Before Yinshu could recover, 2 dark red chains shot toward him from behind, binding him in place like venomous serpents. In a blur, Yinshu's body morphed into a shadow, vanishing and reappearing across the hall. "You dare betray our infernal region and side with these outsiders, you Luo?" Yinshu hissed coldly, his eyes narrowing at the woman. Weeping Soul flinched, a conflicted expression crossing her face. "Enough!" Han Li shouted, making a swift hand seal. A storm of sword projections erupted from his azure bamboo cloud swarm swords, crashing toward Yinshu with violent force. Yinshu met the attack head-on, unleashing a wave of black shadows from his palms that collided with the sword projections in a series of thunderous explosions. Though the wave shattered the sword storm, the effort left Yinshu slightly pale. "Now's our chance, Weeping Soul." Han Li's voice rang out in her mind. Resolute, she released her chains again, and together with Bai Li Yan's dark fireball, they hurled their attacks toward their foes. Despite their offensive, Guimu and Yinshu held back, wary of causing too much destruction to the hall. The combatants danced in the chaotic fray, the clash of power lighting up the room as their attacks collided. However, the great encompassment cultivators were masters of their craft, and as the battle wore on, they began to gain the upper hand. Their cultivation base far outstripped that of Han Li and his allies, and soon the group was being slowly forced back. The hall, once illuminated by the battle's fierce light, fell into darkness as the combatants pressed their fight. In the heart of the hall, Han Li and Weeping Soul locked horns with Yinshu. The two passed like lightning, and Han Li stumbled back, a deep gash in his shoulder. Yinshu stood firm, immediately attacking again with 2 black spear projections that surged toward them. Han Li reacted swiftly, summoning his azure bamboo cloudswarm swords to intercept the spears, but they slid harmlessly down the spear shafts. Unable to slow their advance, his heart sank, and with a grim look he backed away just as the spears exploded in his path, sending waves of strange energy into his body. His movements slowed, his spiritual power faltered, and he found himself immobilized. Weeping Soul, too, struggled, her body frozen as shadows shot out from Yinshu's hands, wrapping around them both. In an instant, they were trapped within a massive black cage formed from intertwining tendrils. The pressure within the cage was overwhelming, and Hanli found himself ensnared, unable to move. Meanwhile, Fox 3 and Bailey Yan were similarly caught, their bodies cocooned in Guimu's ghostly vines. Within minutes, the tables had turned and the group was trapped, their situation growing increasingly dire. Guimu's eyes gleamed with malevolence as he surveyed the ensnared Fox 3 and Bailey Yan, his lips curling into a sinister smile. He conjured 2 gnarled black branches, inscribed with flickering grey runes, radiating a profound aura. With a swift flick of his sleeve, the branches shot toward his captives, accompanied by a surge of baleful chi. On the other side, Yinshu raised both hands, unleashing a dozen hair-thin black threads, each imbued with ominous runes, darting toward Hanli's body. Hanli's expression hardened, but he remained composed, summoning his mantra Treasured Axis. It spun rapidly, emanating golden ripples that engulfed the entire hall, freezing every attack, branches, needles, cage, and enemies alike, in their tracks. The ripples rooted the 3 great encompassment cultivators in place, leaving Hanli the sole figure capable of movement. Seizing this fleeting moment, Hanli chanted an incantation, golden light enveloping him as he extended a finger. A radiant finger projection shot forward, tearing through the black cage, leaving a gaping hole. He summoned his profound heavenly gourd, releasing a beam of light that swiftly severed the ghost vines encasing Fox 3 and Bailey Yan. Hanli flew through the hole, rescuing them with a swift azure shield, retreating just as his Time Law powers waned. Yinshu and Guimu, freed from the time-induced stasis, unleashed surges of black light to resist the golden ripples, tearing them apart. The tide of time returned to normal, and Hanli's group regrouped beside Shi Chuankong, who was intently working on the Stone Gate's restrictions. "Thank you, fellow Taoist Han," Fox 3 said, gratitude in his eyes, while Bailey Yan nodded in stunned appreciation. Shi Chuankong, ever the strategist, remained absorbed in his task, array flags swirling around him in complex formations, their silver glow illuminating the gate. Hanli, his gaze sharp, warned, "We must stay vigilant. These foes are great encompassment cultivators. The battle is far from over." Fox 3 and the others nodded, tension evident. Yinshu, communicating silently with Guimu, muttered, "This brat's time powers are troublesome. If they regroup, this battle will drag on endlessly." Guimu sneered, eyes flashing. "The gate's restrictions were set by the regional monarch. It won't be so easy for them to break through." But Yinshu's expression darkened. "Even if they don't succeed now, the baleful chi is corroding them. They won't last much longer." Hanli frowned as the baleful chi stirred within him, his body once again feeling its suffocating grip. Before he could react, a radiant burst of silver light erupted from the stone gate, dazzling the entire hall. Shi Chuankong, his expression resolute, performed a rapid series of hand seals, causing the array flags to embed themselves into the light barrier. A low roar echoed from beyond the gate. Sending tremors through the chamber, Yinshu and Guimu's expressions shifted from confidence to alarm. "What is he doing? Stop him!" The two surged toward Shi Chuankong, but Hanli intercepted them, his azure bamboo cloud swarm sword swelling in the air, hurtling toward Guimu, while a crimson beam shot from his gourd toward Yinshu. Fox 3 and the others acted swiftly, deploying their own immortal treasures to create a barrier, forcing the great encompassment cultivators to defend themselves. Amid the chaos, Shi Chuankong continued his work, the silver lute appearing in his hands. Each note he played released a streak of silver light into the barrier, amplifying its brilliance. The buzzing crescendoed, vibrating the very air as the final note released a silver figure, vanishing into the barrier. With a final pulse, the restrictions on the gate shattered. "I've done it." Shi Chuankong's voice rang out, exultant but tinged with fatigue. Blood trailed from his lips, but his spirit soared. "I've refined the Virata flute." In a flash, 2 ribbons of silver light shot from the lute, enveloping Guimu and Yinshu, teleporting them to the edge of the underground tunnel. The two glanced at each other in shock, before rushing back toward the tunnel, their retreat swift. Hanli and his companions, momentarily stunned, quickly regrouped. Shi Chuankong, despite his exhaustion, strummed the lute once more, summoning a teleportation array. With haste, the group entered the array, vanishing in a flash of silver. Almost immediately, Yinshu and Guimu arrived at the entrance, their eyes burning with fury. The light barrier of the stone gate flickered erratically, yet it began to reform, unstable but persistent. "The seal's inside," Guimu growled, urgency in his voice. "We must use the infernal badge to open the restrictions." Yinshu hesitated, his face dark with frustration. "The restrictions haven't fully recovered. Even the infernal badge can't break them yet." Silence fell as Guimu clenched his fists, staring intently at the gate, the tension palpable in the air. As Han Li and his companions entered the stone gate, they traversed a dim passageway before reaching a vast hall. The air within was thick with a faintly sweet aroma, rising from yellow oil lamps lining the walls. Though temporarily safe, the group was on edge, having narrowly escaped the pursuit of two great encompassment cultivators. Han Li, however, did not let his guard down, for he knew little of the nature of this place. Such restricted areas often harboured dangerous secrets, be it ancient cultivation arts, treasures, or something far darker. The hall, intricate with numerous complex array patterns beneath their feet, boasted two long murals. These depicted fierce battles between wild beasts, resembling those on the palace gates. At the end of the hall stood a towering relief of a humanoid beast, its features eerily similar to those seen earlier, but this time in an upright posture. Its legs bore the characteristics of a horse or deer, and its arms gripped a fiery sword. A ball of black mist hovered over one of its clawed hands, exuding a sinister aura. Shi Chuankong expressed concern that the spatial restrictions would soon give way. Han Li remained unfazed, suggesting they first understand the true nature of the site. Weeping Soul soon noticed murals depicting an ancient ceremony, blood-soaked and brutal, with tens of thousands of Grey Realm beings sacrificed to a gigantic crater. The beast from the relief loomed over, its greedy maw awaiting the offering. Han Li, with a furrowed brow, noticed an indentation in the ground resembling the crater in the mural. His intuition sparked a theory that the creature in the murals was sealed here, explaining the restrictive barriers and the infernal tribe's fear of disturbing it. But before they could delve deeper into this mystery, a violent rumble shook the hall. The restrictions outside were breaking, signaling the urgency of their situation. Han Li, unfazed, proposed that releasing the creature might offer them a chance to escape. Yet Weeping Soul hesitated, as if sensing the peril that lay ahead. A voice rang in Han Li's mind. Shi Qinghe warned against releasing the creature. The Kun Hao, a being of unparalleled power, formed from the baleful essence of the Grey Realm itself, was far too dangerous. But Han Li, ever resolute, decided that desperate times called for desperate measures. As the rumbling grew louder, Shi Chuankong suggested setting up arrays to dismantle the restrictions. Han Li, with his infernal devilish eyes, soon discovered strange patterns etched into the ceremonial altar, but no immediate solution presented itself. His gaze shifted to the ceiling, where 7 concentric circles of runes were engraved, centered by an inverted black pillar. It was a spatial array, and its complexity matched the all-encompassing restrictive array from their devil realm. The team's efforts became frantic, as Shi Chuankong recognized elements from ancient Grey Realm scriptures. Yet, with the rumbles intensifying, Han Li knew they had no choice but to gamble. Under Shi Chuankong's guidance, they set about arranging the necessary baleful inkstones and array plates, the tension palpable as the threat from outside drew ever closer. The battle raged on, the air thick with tension, as Yinshu and Guimu tore through the protective array surrounding the plaza. Their advance was met with determined resistance from Bai Yan and Weeping Soul, who took the lead in a desperate attempt to hold them back. "We don't have time, keep moving," Shi Chuankong urged, beads of sweat dotting his brow. Bai Yan, ever the strategist, rose to his feet, a grim resolve in his eyes. "We must press on. I'll find a way to stall them," he declared, his voice unwavering. Weeping Soul, sensing the peril, immediately offered to assist. "I'll accompany you, fellow Taoist Bailey," she said, though Han Li's expression darkened with concern. "It's too dangerous. We face 2 great encompassment cultivators. One misstep and you'll be dead." Han Li warned, eyes narrowing as he continued his work. But Bai Yan was resolute. "If we don't act, they will break through before we can complete the ritual. Besides, I've already cheated death twice. What harm is there in tempting fate once more?" Weeping Soul, firm in her resolve, added, "I am a disciple of the infernal regional monarch. They would not dare harm me. Together we can buy you time." With a resigned sigh, Han Li relented. "Then be cautious and avoid direct confrontation." No sooner had they taken their positions than Yin Shu and Gui Mu appeared, crashing into a massive black fireball conjured by Bai Li Yan. The explosion rocked the plaza, flames swirling in all directions, as Gui Mu, his dark eyes glinting with malice, unleashed a barrage of ghostly vines to shield himself from the blast. At last. "You fools," Gui Mu bellowed, his voice like a whip. "Do you have any idea what you're meddling with?" "We must finish this swiftly," Yin Shu hissed, his impatience palpable. Without hesitation, Bai Li Yan began to chant, his hands moving swiftly in intricate seals. The air thickened with a pulsating red light as cracks began to spread across his body, releasing bursts of black flames that consumed the plaza. Weeping Soul, with a roar that defied her dainty frame, transformed into a towering black ape, its 1,000-foot form radiating with overwhelming strength. Its fur, tough as steel, glistened beneath the dark sky, while a third demonic eye opened in its forehead, glowing with malevolent power. "You traitor! This is how you repay our regional monarch?" Gui Mu's voice shook with fury as he stared at Weeping Soul, now an embodiment of terror. But his anger was cut short by the sudden appearance of a massive black dragon, emerging from the smoky depths, a swirling mass of karmic fire surrounding it. The dragon's form was so immense it scraped the flight restrictions above, sending sparks into the air. "They oppose us only because they believe we will not dare act for fear of destroying the seal," Yin Shu sneered, his eyes cold as steel. "Elder Gui Mu, open all the restrictions. We must end this now." Gui Mu hesitated, but the urgency in Yin Shu's voice left him no choice. "You know the risks," Gui Mu protested, but before another word could be spoken, he rushed off to obey, the infernal badge now in hand. "Enough of this!" Yin Shu roared, and a flood of black light erupted beneath his feet, spreading outward like ink spilling across water, wrapping the entire plaza in an oppressive shroud. Bai Li Yan and Weeping Soul were engulfed, their senses torn away as they were pulled into an eerie void. Back in the hall, the chamber began to tremble as Han Li and his companions watched with bated breath. The stone pillar at the center descended with a low hum, sealing itself into place with a faint clang. Baleful chi rose from the ground, spreading through the hall, and the baleful inkstones embedded in the walls glowed ominously, illuminating the surroundings with a sickly light. Han Li's instincts flared as he heard a strange, animal-like growl echo through the chamber. The once still reliefs of fearsome beasts seemed to come alive, their eyes glowing with malice. Suddenly, 2 fiery orbs, one crimson and one black, shot from the relief's eyes, intertwining as they spiraled up the stone pillar, lighting the array patterns in their wake. The chamber shuddered violently, and beneath the ground, the very earth began to crack open, revealing a vast chasm filled with searing flames. At its center, another pillar stood, its surface etched with ancient runes, burning red from the intense heat. Han Li's infernal devilish eyes caught traces of fire laws mingling with the karmic fire below, and beneath the flames he saw the faint outline of a shadow. Wrapped in a web of red chains, his heart skipped a beat. "Move!" Han Li shouted, soaring into the air with the speed of a striking serpent. Just as he did, a monstrous hand, towering and grotesque, emerged from the flames. With a terrifying roar, it swiped through the air, missing Han Li by mere inches as it smashed into the edge of the chasm. The battle was escalating, and the stakes had never been higher. The very foundation of the hall trembled, as if the entire world was on the brink of collapse.